Hello everyone. Today, we'll be seeing how fast Magneton can beat Pokemon Leafgreen in a solo run challenge. Let's get straight into the video. I would say last week we played through Pokemon Pearl with Purugly and Skuntank, but due to a power outage and a windstorm, I lost the footage for Skuntank and I had to cancel the video. Sorry about that. But anyway, earlier this week, we played through Pokemon Leafgreen with Electrode, and it performed pretty dang well for an electric type. Having access to Sonic Boom at level 1, and having the ability to get Thunderbolt from the game corner, made things pretty simple, although we still needed a lot of training and attack EVs for Giovanni. Hopefully Magneton can do better, but I highly doubt it. And if you want to know why I doubt it, we need to go over our stats and our move pool. We have 50 HP, 60 attack, 95 defense, 120 special attack, which is more special attack than Electrode, which is good, 70 special defense, and only 70 speed. That should be enough speed to outspeed everything in the game because of the level we're going to need. And if we look at our level up moveset, sadly we do not start with Sonic Boom. We start with Metal Sound, Tackle, Thunder Shock, and Super Sonic. And if you're wondering why my moveset images look different, I now use a piece of software called Solo Dex, which was created by Scott's Thoughts. It's sort of like a Pokedex that's offline. It pulls stuff from Bulbapedia, and it's just very convenient to use, very friendly user interface. You don't have to go through 30,000 different Bulbapedia tabs to look at all the moves and stuff. It's a very good piece of software. If you want it, join the Scott's Thoughts solo running Discord server. He should have it in the link of the description of his videos. But anyway, back to the moveset. We don't get Sonic Boom until level 16, so we're going to need to train to that level for Brock. But we do get Spark at level 26, which is going to be great. And since this is Generation 3, Spark is going to be a special move, which is great. And then we get Lock On, Tri-Attack, Screech, and Zap Cannon. Throughout the TMs, we get hardly anything. Effectively just Thunderbolt, Thunder, and Return. We do get Shockwave as well, but Spark does more damage than Shockwave, so it's only really useful if we're facing against Koga or Minimize users. And if you're wondering if any of the Fire Red and Leaf Green tutors are going to be helpful, the only ones we could theoretically get are Double Edge, Mimic, Thunderwave, and Substitute. Substitute is helpful for almost everybody, and believe it or not, one of these other moves will have a very helpful use. If you want to know what it is, wait until later in the video. And since I just mentioned we're going to need Sonic Boom for Brock, I spend the early game just training against wild Pokemon, defeating the optional rival, as well as all the trainers in the forest, and then eventually just grinding in the forest. But something I'm going to do at the same time is actually catch Pokemon for my Pokedex. I'm actually going to need the leftovers for the champion fight for a very specific strategy, so I'm going to want to just get a head start on them. Normally in the past I would just backtrack to these areas with Ultra Balls, but honestly, I think it's faster to actually just catch stuff as you play the game, because it did definitely feel a lot easier for sure. Skipping ahead all that grinding, by the time we get to 15 minutes into the run, we are at level 16, and we're ready to take on the first gym leader, Brock. Brock leads off with Geodude. It'll be a 2-hit with Sonic Boom, and so is the Onix. Next, on Route 3, normally some trainers here may provide some struggle, but with Magneton, not really. I'm already pretty over-leveled at this point, and the next gym leader and the rival fight are going to be very easy for electric types, so I essentially just fight the minimum number of trainers that I feel like I can get away with. Plus, I try not to use Repel too much, and I keep catching stuff as I go through Mount Moon. And then at the very end, I can exit Mount Moon and enter Cerulean City. From here, we gotta ask ourselves the age-old question, should we fight Misty or Rival 2? Misty is gonna be far easier than Rival 2, but they're both gonna be pretty easy. But why don't we fight Misty first? I'm not even gonna roll an intro because, yeah, this fight's pretty easy. Granted, I should have equipped the Person Berry near the Route 4 Pokemon Center, but I forgot. But thankfully I still won anyway. Alright, Rival time. He leads off with Pidgeotto, and at this level, Spark will be a one-shot, and without any risk of Sand Attack, the entire fight becomes an absolute joke. Kinda like the Route 24-25 gauntlet of trainers on Nugget Bridge. These trainers are never really threatening, although I still have Sonic Boom at this point, mainly to handle the hikers with Geodudes. And I'm going to be fighting the guy with 3 Geodudes and 1 Machop, because I would like the TM for Secret Power, because I need a better move than Tackle. And with Secret Power obtained, I rescue Bill from his freakish experiment, head down to Vermilion City, and board the SS Anne. I'm not going to need the rest TM, I just grab the berries on the boat, defeat the rival here pretty easily, get the HM for cut, and then we can go ahead and take on the 3rd gym leader, Lieutenant Surge. Surge leads off with Voltorb. One of the great things of Secret Power is for some reason it does not activate Contact, which means static won't be a thing. And I can just hold a Cherry Berry in case Raichu goes for its own Thunder Wave. And due to this strategy, I do end up first trying Lieutenant Surge, which is often expected for a lot of playthroughs. And now with Surge defeated, I can go ahead and get the bike voucher, head back to Cerulean City, buy some more Pokeballs in case I find an Onix or a Machop in Rock Tunnel, and now we gotta go take on the Route 9 Rock Tunnel Gauntlet of Trainers. Having access to Spark, Secret Power, and Sonic Boom is going to be great for about 90% of these fights, although when we get to Hiker Dudley, who used to be the self-destructing hiker, I should have equipped a Citrus Berry here for safety, because he easily at any time could go for Magnitude, and I'm going to have to take him down with Sonic Boom and Secret Power, but thankfully, I end up first trying him. He did hit me with a Magnitude 7, but I barely lived. It was really cutting it close. And as soon as I exit Rock Tunnel, I head south of Lavender Town into Route 12 and pick up the TM for Return. At this point, Return has an effective power of around 75 to 77, so it is going to be an upgrade compared to Secret Power, so I'm going to teach it right away. I will have to wait a little bit in order to get Thunderbolt though, and as soon as we enter Celadon City, we're not going to have nowhere near enough money to buy Thunderbolt, so we're not going to worry about it right now. At least Spark is 65 power, but even if we didn't get Spark, if this was still the generation where a Pokemon like Electro didn't get electric moves by level up, I could easily just teach the Shockwave TM, not a big deal. I mean, I could have taught it over Metal Sound just for extra PP, but I did find an interesting use for Metal Sound in the Giovanni fight in the hideout, because what I did on the Kangaskhan was I would actually use Metal Sound and make Spark a very clean 2-shot, although I'm pretty sure without it, it would have been a 3-shot, so I think I just wasted my time. And now with the Rocket Hideout cleared out, I go ahead and pick myself up the T, get the HM for Fly, go back to Lavender Town, and then we can clear out the tower pretty easily. I can even catch a Ghastly and a Cubone while I'm here. I'm actually pretty surprised I even found a Cubone. They're kind of a rare encounter in here. And at the very top of the tower, I try to send the Marowak to hell for keeping Mr. Fuji hostage, but I'm actually very worried about Boomerang completely destroying me. But thankfully, she never ends up using it, because apparently you don't take your brain with you to the afterlife. So anyway, once I rescue Dr. Fuji, I can go ahead and get myself the Poke-Flute. So now, the world is my cloister. I could head down to the Safari Zone and catch some Pokemon, fight Koga, I could go to Silph. I decide to go down to Fuchsia. I try to catch the Snorlax here, but sadly its catch rate is pretty bad, so I end up failing. I almost died too, actually. And as soon as I fail the Snorlax, I actually go back to the department store and I actually purchase some Thunderstones, a Leaf Stone. I'm going to be evolving some Pokemon to help with my Pokedex. I actually caught a Pikachu in the Viridian Forest while training. I can use another Thunderstone on the Eevee from Celadon to evolve it into Jolteon. And I have a Leaf Stone if I catch an Execute in the Safari Zone, but I did not need to buy it. The Safari Zone already has a Leaf Stone inside of it. So anyway, the Safari Zone is where I'm going to catch a decent bunch of Pokemon. The plan here, don't try to throw rocks or bait at them. It's actually statistically the most likely for you to catch if you just chuck balls right away. I remember watching a video on this. It is almost never worth throwing rocks. The Pokemon here I end up catching are a Nidoran female, a Doduo, Nidorina, which I can use a Moonstone on to evolve it into Nidoqueen, so that's 2 entries. Execute, which I can evolve into Executor with the Leaf Stone, so that's another 2 entries. And that's pretty much all I catch. This was overall a pretty unlucky Safari Zone, but this will be more than enough, because when I leave the Safari Zone, I can go ahead and teach Substitute over Metal Sound, head to the PC, do some evolving, and by the time I finish all the evolving, I have 33 Pokemon. So yeah, I definitely caught a few too many Pokemon. I could have just not evolved some of that stuff, but you know what? I'll take it. I can go fly to Vermilion City, head to the gate on Route 11, get the item finder, make the other Snorlax run away, and then I can go ahead and use the item finder and get myself the leftovers. Even though I only need this for the champion fight, I'm still going to hold on to this for the rest of the run just because it's a very useful held item to have in general. And with the leftovers obtained, I'm actually going to fly to Saffron City and enter Silph. I'm not going to do any of the training here, although looking back, maybe I should have done some training, but oh well. I'm actually going to get the card key and get a bunch of the high money items in here, and then as soon as I leave, I can actually head back to Celadon, sell a bunch of the vitamins and TMs for money. I do keep the proteins and the calciums though, because I am going to need a lot of attack EVs for later, and with all the money I have, I can not only afford 2 extra protein, but I can also go to the game corner, get 4,000 coins, and get the TM for Thunderbolt. This is going to be my most powerful move that's going to be very consistent. And I will mention though, during the whole Silph fiasco, I end up getting 2 blackouts on the Rocket Grunt with the Machoke guarding the rare candy. Revenge hurts really bad, and Spark actually doesn't one-shot it. What I should have done was probably just skip that guy and backtrack for the candy after Giovanni, but what can you do? And with access to Return and Thunderbolt, 2 very powerful moves, I can completely destroy Erica, and then I can fly down to Fuchsia City and use Thunderbolt and Substitute to completely destroy Koga as well. And with Koga defeated, I can use Surf outside of battle because I actually want a Versus Seeker grind on Fisherman Ronald, aka Psych, because he has a team of 3 Seeking and a Goldeen, which give around 7 attack EVs per battle. I need as many attack EVs as possible for Giovanni's gym, as well as Bruno. It'll help on the champion as well. However, I need to defeat Rival 5 in order to get access to Lapras for Surf and Strength. I could have just used a Water Stone on Eevee and used Surf on Vaporeon, but it doesn't really matter though. The rival in this run today hasn't really been that good, since I always face the Charizard team because I always replace Bulbasaur in my runs for consistency. I never really have to worry about this guy with electric types. The Charizard team is not great on electric types at all. It's pretty funny. And after I defeat the rival, the Team Rocket Grunt with the Marowak and the Giovanni fight here as well is actually pretty difficult. I have to take this on slow and steady, and Giovanni's Rhyhorn looks like it takes more damage from Sonic Boom than Return. It was sort of the reason I held on to it for this long. I know when I played Magneton in Red and Blue, I actually taught Toxic, which honestly could have been a better strat. I could have taught Toxic and used it on Rhyhorn, but oh, it's not really that big a deal. It's just a difference of a few turns. And with Silph liberated, I can cause massive property damage by digging out, and head into Sabrina's gym and take on the 6th gym leader, Sabrina. Sabrina leads off with Kadabra. I should have used a turn 1 substitute mainly for insurance coverage in case the Venomoth or the Mr. Mime does anything funny, but thankfully they really don't. There are going to be 2 shots either way, although I one-shot the Venomoth thanks to a critical hit. And then last up on Sabrina's Alakazam, it'll just be a simple 2-shot after it wastes its turn with Calm Mind. Sadly, I can't learn this great setup move though. And with Sabrina defeated, I can dig out of her gym, also causing massive property damage. I should probably fly away from Silph before the cops come after me. And I'm actually going to fly to Pallet Town, and before I go on that brisk swim down to Cinnabar Island, I'm going to begin my training on Fisherman Ronald, aka Psych the Fisherman. I'm going to train here for attack EVs until I'm essentially maxed out. Axukarisora recommended I get at least 224 attack EVs to really help out with Bruno in the league. However though, by the time I max out on all of my EVs, I only end up at 151, which is not great. It does mean I'm going to need an extra couple of levels for Giovanni's gym, because I need those EVs for specific ranges, not only on Cool Trainer Warren, but also on Giovanni himself. But I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. I can continue the swim down to Cinnabar Island, clear out the mansion, and then enter Blaine's gym. You may think he's easy, but you gotta remember, we're a steel type. We have a disadvantage here. So we actually need to play an intro and talk about this fight. Blaine leads off with Growlithe. It does use Intimidate, which doesn't matter. Thunderbolt can one-shot it and the Ponyta. Okay, next up is the Rapidash. I go for Thunderbolt, and it actually lives in very low red health. And Fire Blast does very massive damage. That is actually kind of worrying, because unless I get a Fire Blast miss on the Arcanine, I'm going to straight up lose. And that's exactly what happened. I straight up lose. On the second attempt, I end up with an idea. I'm actually going to spam Substitute on the Growlithe until I get a Fire Blast miss, because if I can tank a Fire Blast from the Rapidash, I should remain near very high health, so I should survive the Fire Blast from Arcanine. It does take a few tries to work, and when I do get past the Growlithe with my Substitute still intact, the Rapidash just missed Fire Blast as well anyway, which is pretty funny. I'll take it. And with that done, I can two-shot the Arcanine with Thunderbolt. It does break my Substitute, but it's too little too late, and I can get my 7th badge. One of the helpful things with the 7th badge is it gives me a 10% boost to my special attack and special defense, which I will gladly take. And since Blaine's defeated, Bill will be waiting for us outside the gym and asks us if we want to come to the Sevi Islands with him. I am actually going to say yes, because on Island 2 on Cape Brink, I'm actually going to get a rare candy behind the house where some woman teaches you either Frenzy Plant, Hydro Cannon, or Blast Burn. She won't teach it to any of the starters. It has to specifically be the Kanto ones, which is kinda dumb, but I guess I can understand why. And with this rare candy obtained, I cannot go back to mainland Kanto until I finish up the side quest on 3 Island, which fortunately doesn't take that long. Thankfully there's another PP up here, so I can actually use it on Thunderbolt. And with all the Sevi Island stuff done, we only have one more place to go, and that's Giovanni. However though, I'm going to need an extra couple of levels before I use my 12 rare candies because of my lackluster attack EVs. So I'm actually going to train on Fisherman's Psych until I get to around level 58, and I could use 12 candies to get to level 70. And at level 70, Cool Trainer Warren ends up being very simple, and I can go take on Giovanni. Giovanni leads off with his first Rhyhorn, and you may notice on my moveset, I have a new move, Mimic. This is the other tutor move that's going to be very helpful, because what I can do is I can defeat the Rhyhorn, and then on one of Giovanni's Pokemon, I can Mimic Earthquake, and use that to take care of his Nidos and the second Rhyhorn, because the Nidos are not one-shots with return, unfortunately. The first attempt against Giovanni doesn't go too well because I choose to copy Earthquake off of the Nidoqueen instead of the Dugtrio, which I should have done, and because of that, I end up getting a quick reset because of it. On the second attempt, I get Earthquake from the Dugtrio instead, and I can use Earthquake to one-shot the Nidoqueen, the Nidoking, and the Rhyhorn. You know, I am actually very happy Mimic had a use in Gen 3. I remember when I did the Tropia stream in Pokemon Emerald, Gym Leader Matt and I tried to find a use for Mimic against the gym leaders in Emerald, but sadly we couldn't. But it seems like in this game, if you have a Pokemon that struggles against Giovanni, this might be an electric type Pokemon situation. I could have Substitute and Mimic, and then I can just steal Earthquake. I mean, Plusle and Minun didn't need to use it because they both learned Iron Tail, which is a bit more reliable. Rival 6 before Victory Road is pretty easy, and then inside of Victory Road, I'm actually going to get the final rare candy, but I'm not going to use it yet. I need a minimum of level 78 going into the league, because on Bruno's second Onix, if I had the 224 attack EVs, his second Onix would be a one-shot with Earthquake, but sadly because of my EVs, it'll be a two-shot. So I'm going to want to make sure I'm at the correct level, otherwise things are going to go very bad. So I actually fight a lot of the trainers in Victory Road, and sadly I do end up coming up a little short, so I end up having to go back to Psych and do some more Versus Seeker training. And then by the time I get to level 77, I use one candy to get to 78 and fly back to the Pokemon League. I'm going to heal up at the center, buy some full restores, and now we need to go take on the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. The first member of the Elite Four is Lorelei, the ice type user. She leads off with Dewgong, and her entire team is just a Thunderbolt sweep. My level is so high at this point, even the Jinx with its very high special defense is a one-shot. So yeah, this fight's not worth worrying about. Next up is the Fighting type Elite Four member, Bruno. Bruno leads off with his first Onyx. This is going to be a bit tricky. I'm going to use Substitute and just spam Return or Substitute until I get it to use Earthquake. The thing is, it's just going to use Rock Tomb most of the time. It's very annoying, but eventually he does go for Earthquake. I'm going to mimic it, and his Earthquake only does less than half because Onyx's attack stat is quite terrible. Then I can use Thunderbolt to one-shot the Hitmonchan, the Hitmonlee, and sadly, the Machamp is not a one-shot. That thing survives everything. But thankfully, it just goes for Bulk Up instead of Cross Chop. Last up is the second Onyx. Because of the fact I am lacking in attack EVs, the Onyx does survive, but its own Earthquake doesn't really do that much. So honestly, all those extra attack EVs really weren't necessary, but the level absolutely was. Next up is the Ghost type Elite Four member, Agatha. Agatha is generally pretty simple in this game. If you have Substitute to block Toxic, Confuse Ray, just let it stack up Double Team, use your own setup moves if you need to. You can just sweep her entire team with one move, and my one move of choice is Thunderbolt. Next up is the Dragon type Elite Four member, Lance. Sadly, we can't use Mimikyu to steal Ice Beam because that strat only exists in Pokemon Yellow. So what I'm actually going to do is just sweep his entire team with Thunderbolt. But looking back at this, I should have used Mimic to steal Outrage, but the problem is I would have had to bait them into using Outrage because behind my Substitute, they just kept using Thunder Wave. So honestly, I don't think that strat would have worked anyway. Although the Dragonite does use it, but it's a clean two-shot with Thunderbolt anyway, so honestly, it doesn't really matter in the end. And yeah, first try Lance. And this is the point of the run where I do kinda mess up. In order for my strategy to work at the champion, I need to have the TM for Protect. I actually forgot the TM for Protect. I need the Protect TM to help stall out the Earthquakes on Rhydon so I can defeat it easier. But who knows, maybe we don't need it. The champion leads off with Pidgeot. I'm going to go ahead and use a Substitute, block Feather Dance, and the leftovers will get my health back to full. What I'm hoping will happen is that the Rhydon will use Earthquake, which it does, and then I can use Mimic and just hope I survive, because I am level 80 after all. And eventually, when I get to the Earthquake usage, yeah, it's a one-shot. And you know what, since I have deposited my HM users, I'm going to go ahead and take the Blackout, head back to the power plant, get myself the Protect TM, and come back here again. Thankfully, doing the League again gets me level 82. Maybe this will let me survive Earthquake? It does not. Okay. What Axiu's strat was for this place was actually use a combination of Substitute, Protect, and Leftovers to actually stall out all 10 Earthquakes, and actually slowly whittle the Rhydon down with Return. I actually came up with a better strat on the fly. I'm actually going to use Mimic instead of Return on the Rhydon, so that way I can use Earthquake on it to two-shot. I'm still going to have to use Protect and Substitute to stall out the Earthquakes, because here's a picture right here. At this level, with the EVs I have, it is only going to have an 87% chance to one-shot. So basically, I would only have a 12.5% chance to survive at like 1 or 2 hit points remaining. It is very unlikely, so I do need Protect and Substitute with Leftovers. This strat would not be possible without Leftovers. This run would be a lot worse without Leftovers, because if I had to set up the Substitute on Pidgeot and arrive at the Rhydon with 3/4 health, no matter what level I am, the Earthquake will always kill me. It would be terrible. So yeah, thankfully Axie realized I needed them, and he routed it in for me. But once the Rhydon runs out of Earthquakes, I can mimic my own Earthquake as it spams Scary Face and Rock Tomb behind a substitute, and I can knock out the Rhydon, I can knock out the Gyarados, the Alakazam, and the Exeggutor, and then clock in, with a real time of 1 hour, 52 minutes, and 34 seconds. Pretty bad real time, especially with all those mistakes I made, but this is still a Magneton. With 8 resets, 3 blackouts at level 83, with a game time at the Hall of Fame of 6 hours and 58 minutes. So yeah, if I had done the end game more properly, this thing's realistic real time would probably be around the low 140 range for sure. At least all of those attack EVs weren't truly needed, and it was actually very fun seeing Mimic actually have a strategy in Fire Red and Leaf Green. It was actually quite nice, and hopefully I can find more uses for this awesome move. But if we take a look at the leaderboard, psych, it's not the leaderboard. You may have seen this from the streams, but I'm starting to actually convert my leaderboards into Scott's tier list software, just because it looks a lot cleaner. And as you can see on my tier list right here, I'm actually going to be placing Magneton near the bottom of the Surge tier. This thing did not perform great. It did do better than Plusle though, and I think even if it did better, maybe if it's lucky it could get out of the Surge tier and into the F tier, but I kind of doubt it. And I've actually started to realize I have played a lot of Bruno tier Pokemon. It's kind of surprising. And even though this is a tier list, Scott's tier list software also has a leaderboard function too. So I can actually bring up the leaderboard window, and we can see that Magneton got 35th place overall. It did about 3 minutes worse than Rhyhorn of all things, and it did about 4 minutes better than Plusle. And just look at all those Pokemon I have in the Bruno tier. I essentially have the difference between Surge and Bruno tier anywhere from under 1 hour 40 to 2 hours or over 2 hours. That's my threshold. And down there is Ditto because it's impossible and can't finish the run. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoy the new tier list and leaderboard I'll be using, thanks to Scott for it, as well as thanks to him for making the solo deck software that I'll be taking all my moveset screenshots from now on. It is just so convenient to have. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoy. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more, and be sure to follow me on my socials or support the channel through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to the patch files for all the Mega Evolution Pokemon we do on stream. Keep an eye out for this Saturday, tomorrow, where we'll be doing Mega Frostlass and Scott will be joining us. And you also get access to members only videos. I've actually been doing first attempt playthroughs with Scott for his own videos, just to mainly help him with planning and just give them some entertainment in general. And I've been uploading the VODs to my members only page, so if you want to see those, become a member today. Next week, we're actually going to be going back to Pokemon Heart Gold, and I've got a special treat for you all. We're going to have 3 runs next week. We'll be doing Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. Suicune will be the edited video, and we'll be doing a live stream of Raikou and Entei. I'll do Raikou on Tuesday, and I'll do Entei on Thursday. In the original Crystal game, Entei was just straight up the worst. Its moveset was quite terrible. Raikou wasn't really any better. Suicune overall was the best. I wonder how the results will hold up in this game. We'll have to wait and find out. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.